I'm sitting here with Phil Stutz, and he had the really generous idea of doing short video chats to help all of us through this really extraordinary circumstance we find ourselves in between the COVID and all the social unrest. One thing I want to let you guys know, in case you don't already, is that Phil has Parkinson's, and it kind of can subdue his expression a little bit. So just have that awareness. So today we're going to talk about relationships.
Now, here's the thing in general and specifically, which is this whole period, let's call it the quarantine period, is going to be very, very difficult, very trying, but also there's an opportunity in this. And the opportunity is to develop new skills, new abilities. So now we're going to take a look at that and deconstruct that a little bit in terms of a marriage or any long-standing relationship. And there's certain dynamics in relationships under this kind of pressure. You know, you think of it as like a hothouse. In other words, it's like the plants can grow faster and bigger, but on the other hand, if you don't take care of them, they all die. So there's a lot of pressure on the relationships. The goal is to establish a sense of goodwill that you'll both carry towards each other, that you'll both carry with you for the rest of your life. It means that psychologically you have to go into these situations expecting a little less and giving a little more. And even a small degree of that will make a huge difference. This is just purely arbitrary, but just to make it easier for me, I'm going to talk about this as a husband and wife. So I'm identifying one of the players as male and one as female, but it just as easily could be flipped around. Now, so here's a typical thing. Your partner has a high pressure job. He works all the time. And when he gets home, he likes to relax completely. He doesn't like anything to be asked of him. Well, guess what? That's not going to hold up in the situation we're in now. And the reason is very simple. Normally, there's an ebb and flow. You know, a person goes home, wakes up in the morning, goes to work. There are rhythms to it. And there are obviously rhythms if someone's not working also. Okay, so let's talk about what normally happens. So the guy comes home, and what he wants, and he's nervous. He's nervous about the COVID thing. He's nervous about his kids. He's nervous about money, et cetera, et cetera. What he wants is for his wife to be like a drug, almost like a tranquilizer. And how does that take form? It's like he wants to feel everything is taken care of perfectly in the home, so he does not have to worry about it or even think about it. However, in these circumstances, he'll actually become more demanding and more fixated on the symbolic aspect of this. Let me say that again. If things aren't running perfectly within the household, it'll trigger all his other fears. And he wants his wife to take care of whatever it is that he deems is very crucial or important, because that means to him the world is back in control. And therefore the world becomes expectable, which is ridiculous, of course. As a matter of fact, the irony of it is the more he wants things to be predictable, the more things are going to go out of control. Now, let's look at it from the wife. Again, it could be, we could reverse the genders, it doesn't matter. But look at it from her point of view. What is she looking for? She's looking for him not to distance himself, not to withdraw from the dynamics of the family life, but to pitch in a little bit more. She's scared too. So you have two people with very conflicting needs that naturally conflict. Now, here's the secret of this whole thing. In order to keep the bond going between the two parties, in order to create goodwill under stress, that's what we're talking about. Each person has to go a little bit outside what they're familiar with. So it means that the husband has to become less withdrawn from the ebb and flow of the family activities, etc. As a matter of fact, he needs to insert himself into them, even if he doesn't feel like it. And the other side of the coin is the wife's hope is that he'll be a little bit more sensitive to her plight and understand how difficult this is. Let's say they have kids as well. One of the kids heard about this in school. Mommy, when is this going to be over? Am I going to die? So what she wants is a relief. What she wants is a relief from the pressure of having to create this fictitious, perfect household. And the only way she can get that relief is for her to feel like the husband actually cares about her experience. Not that he doesn't already love her, but this is on a minute-to-minute, almost a second-to-second basis. Now, we call the higher bond, if you think of like two little stick figures and lines going back and forth between the two of them, people think that's the relationship. It's not. That's just a model that's going to cause a lot of fighting. The relationship up here, we call it the higher bond. The third entity, there's you, there's your partner, and then there's this third thing. And each, to create a strong higher bond, which is, higher bond is another way of talking about goodwill between two people. To create a strong higher bond, each person has to contribute, or let's put it this way, each person has to make a sacrifice in order for that to work. And they have to make a sacrifice on spec, because they don't really know if their partner is going to do what the partner needs to do to make her contribution to the higher bond. It's called unilaterality. You have to unilaterally, under your own steam, give more to the relationship than you normally would, more, not less. And it's on spec. I call it on spec because you don't really know what the effect of that's going to be. If both of you do that, then we have a real winner. And again, we're trying to make the bond more constructive, more loving, more adaptable between two people when they're under the greatest degree of pressure. It's hard enough when there's only normal pressure. However, if you think about it logically, you have no choice in the matter but to do that. Now, here are some of the things that you need to be able to do. The first thing is, we'll call it renunciation. It means you have to drop your expectations about what you're supposed to get and focus on what you're supposed to give. So here's what you have to let go of. We call it SUVT. So you can remember SUV like an SUV. T. So it's an acronym. So it means support, understanding, the truth, and validation. You have to write those off and say, I'm not going to get those right now. My job is to give and to renounce getting those things. Now, it's not like you won't get them. You'll actually get more of them. But what you want is the other person feeling, this is true with any kind of couple. In fact, it's actually true in any kind of a social situation altogether.
I love this idea of unilaterality, where you are just going to have your mission of giving, and that is not dependent at all on what the other person's doing. So my job is to renounce, in fact, not only to not pay attention to what the other person's doing, it's to renounce a need for them to give me anything. I'm not going to get support. I'm not going to get understanding. I'm not going to get validation, and I'm not going to get the truth. So if both partners do that, it creates this higher bond.
Yes.
Now, what if you're the wife or the husband, or the husband and the husband, or the wife and the wife, or whatever the couple is? What if you're the person who is doing that a lot every day and your partner's not doing it at all?
The first thing is, the most important thing is for her, if she's the aggrieved party, not to give up on her program, not to give up on it, even though it's completely unfair. He's not trying at all, or very little bit, or he's put upon a word about his business, and he feels that supersedes the family. It doesn't matter.
I'll just say, I have seen this with my clients and with myself, where when I do that, mostly it tends to really work. Mostly it's sort of like that idea is it takes two to tango, it takes two to fight. So if I'm doing that, it usually disarms the situation and brings a sense of love to it pretty soon. But what if somebody says, hey, I'm doing this all the time, every day, and my partner is still being a jerk?
So there's a variety of ways you can deal with that. Again, under the heading of I'm not going to give up on my part, otherwise it wouldn't be unilateral, right?
Right.
Number one, you can sit down and talk to the person about it. If you're going to do that, it has to be dedicated time. It can't be ad hoc. You know, you meet each other in the hallway and you say, well, that won't work. If you can't at least insist that the other person sits down with you and without his, cell phone or a TV set or whatever, then we got a real problem. So, and
Yeah.
for some people, just saying, I want this dedicated time, give me a half hour, and tell me when, exactly when we're going to do this. So that's number one. Number two, once you have a time and a place, each person has to come a little bit prepared. It's not a big deal, but if it's just ad hoc and speaking off the top of your head, it tends not to be productive.
Mm-hmm. So we're not saying become a doormat and keep yourself in an abusive relationship by just spreading goodwill all the time. That's not what we're assuming that there's a basic goodwill between you that can somehow be revived.
Yeah, we're assuming, basically we're assuming that your husband can recognize and feel goodwill. Now, some people can't, then you're dealing with, someone who's really psychopathic. But the idea of asking for the time, coming prepared, and then having the courage to say what it is that is bothering her or him, whatever. Mm-hmm. That's, and I would say about 50%, 60% of the time, the guy, if we're going to consider this person a guy, will react positively.
Also, that for the person who's doing it, whatever partner, this becomes like a muscle that we are exercising that we can take out into the whole world.
Yes, that's correct. And again, that's the overall theme of this series, which is, it's going to be very difficult through this time period, but yes, the opportunities for spiritual, emotional growth in the most concrete way possible, not just some airy-fairy way, are greater.
Yeah.
It's like gym and lifting a heavier weight.
Yeah, and that's what these talks are supposed to be. So this was our talk on relationships. If you have questions, send me an email to jamie@jamierosecoaching.com, and we'll perhaps discuss them in a future chat. And we'll see you guys soon with another topic. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.